Hi, my name's Justin Johnson.
And I'm Josiah Stowe.
And we are Dominion Wealth Strategists. We are created to put money in the hands of those that are sitting in the pews.
From budgeting to estate planning, savings accounts, retirement planning, life insurance, and a heck of a lot more here at Dominion.
That means that you are leaving an inheritance that passes multiple generations because that is the legacy. It's part of our mission.
All of Christ for all of life.
And all of finance for Christendom.
Talking business makers in the Fight Laugh Feast conference in Nashville in October this year with Gabe Rench. Stick around.
Exploring theology, doctrine, and all of the fascinating subjects in between, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, Dead Men Walking starts now.
Well, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Dead Men Walking Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Moore. You can find out more about us at DMW Podcast or follow us anywhere on socials. Also, too, guys, we need to figure out what we're calling the listeners. You know, I had someone suggest deadheads to me. I think Jerry Garcia has the copyright on that, so we can't go there. Someone said, how about walkers? I said, sounds too much like a zombie movie. So listen, I'm calling out to the listeners. If you guys got a good name for the group of listeners for the Dead Men Walking podcast, shout it out to me. You can click on the link below, shoot a text right to me. And if we end up using it, you're going to get a credit on the merch site. We're going to send you something special. Pick out what you want, a shirt, a mug, a hat, whatever it is. You can get one of these Wine 'em, Dine 'em, Romans 9 'em mugs. Of course, we've got the ever popular, how about you just shut up and let that be your wisdom? Job 13:5. Sometimes you got to quote scripture to the pagans, even if they don't like it. But we want you guys to tell us. But before we start the show, I got to tell you something, guys. You guys know, if you listen for any amount of time, I'm in real estate. I take personal referrals very seriously. So when I give personal referrals, I mean it. These guys that I'm about to talk to you about, I'm not telling you about them because they're funny or I like their jokes or they're good looking. They are top professionals in their industry, and that's Dominion Wealth Planning. It's the only distinctly reformed financial company that you need to know, trust, and use. They are a full-service financial and wealth planning company for your personal, business, and church finances. Look, we're called to be good stewards, right? With what God has blessed us with and to take dominion over our finances. Let's place our money with Christians and not degenerates. Dominion Wealth Planning can assist you with budgeting, debt management, saving, life and health insurance, retirement planning, estate planning, and business services. So all of Christ for all of life and all of finance for all of Christendom. That is their motto. So you know you'll be in good hands when you reach out to them. So book a meeting with them today at the coolest URL on the internet, www.reformed.money, or just click on the link below in the description here. It'll take you right to them. From baptism to burial, Dominion has you covered. Guys, Justin, Josiah, those are my two guys over there. Let's trust other Christians with our finances. Let's have dominion over those, and let's do something for the glory of God. Love those guys over there, and we appreciate them sponsoring the show. Even if they weren't a sponsor, I would tell you about them and tell you to use them. I personally used them. They're good guys. All right, now that we got the business out of the way, who's this handsome devil smoking a cigar on our podcast? It is Gabe Rench, ladies and gentlemen. Director of the Fight Laugh Feast network, business makers, founder, co-host of Cross. I mean, it just goes on and on what this guy doesn't do. And he's been on a few times, and we wanted to have him back. Gabe, how you doing, brother? Thanks for sitting down with us.
Greg, thank you so much for having me on DMW.
Yeah, we got to think of a name for those listeners. So if you think of anyone, you're a branding and marketing genius. You throw it over to me, and we'll hook you up.
How about DMWers? Like Dubbers, Dubbers.
Okay, the Dubbers. I like that.
Dubbers,
Yeah, that's not bad. I like that. But listen, we don't want to spend too much time on that. We have you on because I want to talk about two things, two very exciting things. One is the business makers, which you've founded recently and is just growing exponentially and really helping Christian business owners and investors and things like that kind of come together. And then two, we want to talk a little bit about the Fight Laugh Feast National Conference 2025 in Nashville. I believe it's October 16th through 18th, which I've been to every one, and it's my favorite conference to go to every single year. I've got 6 this year to go to, and by far Fight Laugh Feast is just a joining of brothers and so fun. So we want to talk a little bit about that. But up top, business makers, it's new, it's fun, it's interesting, it's doing something that no one has really ever done before. Can you explain a little bit about that to the listeners?
So I feel like I need to give you a little context of the background how this came about. In
Sure.
2020, when the whole COVID insanity thing happened, I had a lot of business leaders come to me and say, and request, "Do you have a Christian like leaders network? Because I'm siloed off. I need to fellowship and get advice and wisdom from other business leaders who are dealing with COVID insanity. Half my
Mm,
employees want to shut down, half my employees want to go home, half my employees want to wear a mask, and just kind of dealing with real difficult problems in 2020. And there was no real good Christian leadership network established that was handling it well. There are some Christian leadership networks out there, but the feedback I received, it was there just no one was handling it well, which was pretty consistent with the rest of the population, the rest of the
yeah.
U.S. And so that happened in 2020. I didn't have time. The idea came to me. It was seated in my mind. I thought it was a great idea. I didn't have time to execute on it until this last year. In 2024, I spent a good half of the year putting together the business model, the game plan, and how to make it work. And so now, March 1st, we launched Business Makers Network. People can go to businessmakers.network, and it's just a Christian business leadership network. It's built around community, it's built around economic development, it's built around impacting politics.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, the church, so in the last 40 years, that I'm 45, so I tend to think in kind of the last 40, 45 years in terms of my life, what I've experienced and so forth. But in the last 40 years, I don't think the church has discipled its business leaders well.
Yeah.
Generally, when the business leaders are tapped, it's with you when you got a building that you're fundraising for or something, and then it's
Yep.
like go back to your work. But business leaders are usually have a lot of wisdom, a lot of practical knowledge. They usually have money and influence and some of these things that I think strategically we need to bring together as part of a larger Christian business community. If we want to, if we want to impact culture outside the church, which we very much do, we need to engage our business leaders. They're the tip of the spear for the gospel, for the church and the community. I mean, they're out there, they got employees, they're working in the community, they're selling goods and services outside of the church, around the world, even maybe in America or maybe just in their local community. There's so much that needs to be harnessed there. And so the business network is divided up by tiers. You have your MVP tier, which is like your employee tier, all the way to like your CEO that manages more than $20 million in revenue. When we launched in March, we have probably about 60 people as part of the network. We're getting consistently, members every month. By the end of the year, our projections look to have to 200 to 300 members in the network. We got a number of events that are working with that. We got our Fight Laugh Feast conference, which I'll talk about here in a minute. We're doing regional business summits, so we're doing a day long kind of conference or kind of like mini summit, mini conference, which is bringing 40 to 75 people together. We've been averaging at each of these summits, and it's just kind of bringing people, business leaders within a 200-mile radius together in one location. And I mean, people have been hired from that already. Networking's happening. A lot of good
Yeah.
relationships are being built. So you join that. So I mean, I think what's in the last 3 months since I launched it, one of the things that's become um, I become more aware of or realize how much more strategic this business network is for the church, uh, and bringing Christian business leaders together for the kingdom. For one, there's a kind of wealth of knowledge that's being built up in the network.
Yeah.
And so CEOs, they've been there, done that, and you join at the tier that you come in at. And, a $20 million CEO has $20 million problems. And so he's talking to other CEOs who are at that tier. And they give each other knowledge. They help each other. So there's kind of this natural community of wisdom and been there, done that, advice that people are sharing with one another. And then there's the long term. We want to do a chapter by chapter for each state. Michigan have its own business makers chapter, Texas have its own business makers chapter. We can't roll that out the first year, but year two we're looking to roll it out. Mentorship programs with other CEOs. We're going to be rolling that out year two, year three. We're going to also be, Lord willing, our first national conference is looking to be in February. I don't have dates for that yet, but it's looking like to be last week in February. And the goal of that, again, is to kind of like establish this national business community. If we're going to be, I really think the liberals are going to come back with a bigger fight. COVID was just a test case.
Yeah.
And bringing Christian business leaders together, I think, are super strategic for the next 20 years of fighting that we have going on. And so there's just a bunch going on in the network, the community side of it, the economic development side. We want to help businesses launch. We want to help, Lord willing, maybe eventually kind of get a fund within the group going to help launch other businesses within the group. We want to help the politics. We want to impact politics. Business leaders are taking care of families. Business leaders are taking care of economics. Business leaders are taking care of their business. And so they should have a huge voice in economic
Sure.
policy at the administration level or at your state level. Well, the way I've put this before, Greg, is imagine if I had business makers, a chapter in Idaho, we had 200 CEOs managing $5 billion in revenue, and our governor goes to shut down the state of Idaho. And I give the governor a call and say, hey, look, we got 200 CEOs in our network. We got your back. We manage $5 billion in revenue in the state of Idaho. You don't need to shut down Idaho. We got it and everything. I guarantee COVID would have been handled very differently in Idaho. That
Sure.
probably wouldn't have worked in Washington, but in Idaho, that would have worked.
Sure.
The play
In most states,
Washington
I would say.
and the play in Michigan, it probably wouldn't have worked either, but there's different plays to be run. If you have
Sure.
200, let's say, business leaders in your network in Michigan, and the chapter lead in Michigan, calls the governor or calls your supportive legislator and stuff, it changes the conversation because you guys have influence together. I had a CEO who brings in hundreds of millions of dollars. He had zero influence in his state with COVID.
Yeah.
But you bring 20 CEOs together, you bring 200 CEOs, business leaders in your state together, you bring all that, it changes the conversation. And so that's the goal. One of the big goals of the Business Makers Network is also to influence politics and good economic policies in your state and nation.
Yeah, it's very interesting, just because, yes, there is power in numbers, right? And from the political side, I've learned that. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be a whole lot. It just has to be a very loud minority that has a little bit of sway. And when you're talking about $1 or $2 billion here in Michigan, that would be roughly 15 or 12% of the annual budget. And you go to the governor's mansion and you say, look, at 12% of your state economy, we're not okay with this. They might think twice about executive orders and passing things that they think no one, is going to push back on. So the political side of it, I absolutely love. I really do like the levels and tiers to where, if I'm a content creator, a civil engineer, a podcaster, whatever it is, realtor, I can connect with other people that are kind of my peers in doing kind of the same thing. And it's in this overarching theme of Christianity, where we have some guiding principles and morals. We can talk about best practices. We can obviously network. I'm a big networking guy. I have to be in real estate. I have to know agents in every single state if my sellers are moving out of state and they want a referral. So it's very exciting to me to kind of have a national networking system with that type of goal in mind. I just haven't seen that anywhere else. And like you said, maybe a few people were trying to do it and maybe poorly, but COVID too is coming. It might not be a virus. It might not be a cold or flu or whatever. It will be something to where once they understand, we can tell you that you can't go to church. You can't leave your house. You can't go buy tomato seeds like they did here in Michigan. They're going to seize that power again.
Yeah. And to be fair to my competitors, they've been around for a little longer. There's like C12, Convene, some others, and they've built a bigger network. But I mean, I had multiple friends part of those other networks during COVID, and it was very frustrating for them. That's why they contacted me to start a network. It's because they weren't getting the advice they needed. They weren't getting the community they needed. They weren't getting the fighting spirit against tyranny in their network. So I think culturally, what we're building is very unique. It's that fight, laugh, feast, dead man walking kind of unique culture where Christians love Jesus and they want to fight where they need to fight and fellowship where they need to fellowship and feast where they need to feast and laugh where they need. So I think it's the culture of what we're building. And I would say, secondly, the uniqueness to it is no one is using their organization for political influence, because that's a scary thing in the Christian world. But again, we're the center of so much influence in our churches and in our community and with families. A CEO over 200 families is 200 employees and providing for 200 families. I mean, and you need to do your best to take care of those employees, which means getting involved in politics. The governor needs to hear from you, go.
Yeah, and let's not forget he's creating wealth as well too for
That's
those
right.
200 people. You know,
That's right.
I find it very interesting because over the years going to Fight Laugh Feast, I have met and am friendly with and text a lot some very influential people that are also very reformed and very Christian in their faith. People who manage billions of dollars in funds, senators, people who've created cell phone networks, people who are brokers like me, but may have a couple hundred employees. I found it very helpful. I'm a big mentor guy, and I'm a big like let's jump and shortcut and find the smartest person in the room that's doing something and go, okay, tell me all the tricks, and sit at their feet and listen to their wisdom, because they may be 10, 20, 30 years older than me. Some are younger, and go, okay, tell me the pitfalls, tell me what to do. I have all the time people go, how have you done this or done that or created that or build that? And I said, I surround myself with much smarter people who've been there and done that and can tell me what not to do. And that's kind of lost on the younger generation. But with things like the business makers, I'm very encouraged, because you're taking that kind of Fight Laugh Feast, Moscow mood kind of attitude, combining it with the very influential people that attend those conferences and are friendly to what you're doing, putting them into something where they can get together and network and talk and share best practices and clients and customers and all that. And you have something that's very powerful that I think is lacking. So I'm excited about what you're doing there.
And this has been, I think, a problem with, again, kind of the last 40 years. I don't think the churches have come and supported each other very well. There's not unity among the churches very much, and there's not unity among business leaders. We're all kind of siloed off a little bit. And I think that really exposed us during COVID. I think we all realized that, oh my goodness, I'm too siloed off. But I'd also add to this too. There's another layer here that I think is impacting my generation, my dad's generation. Um, their parents went through the Great Depression. That's how close we are. My dad's generation went through the Great Depression, which I think my dad's priority became job security. And I think that generation became job security. So they weren't building infrastructure, but they were working for the guys who were building infrastructure, Google, Facebook, Intel, whatever. And so I think that really hurt kind of the parallel economy, the Christian economy, in a way where we don't have infrastructure, and now we need to build infrastructure. So that's another, with the community and the wisdom and the knowledge of that kind of that wealth of people coming together, I think is super important. And I think one of the things I hope it really helps is actually build infrastructure and help each other build infrastructure and help. It's like we need to, I mean, my dad, he was a hard worker. He worked for Intel, Texas Instruments, Hyundai Semiconductors. He's in the semiconductor world, Micron, so forth. But I had to build my businesses from scratch, from ground up. I had to build infrastructure in a very difficult way. And I hope as Christians come together and realize kind of the bigger moment that we're in, because I think we're super all grateful that Trump got elected in a lot of ways. But we're in a moment where we need to get ahead of the curve. I mean, I think genuinely building the Christian economy, some people call it the parallel economy, some people call it the patriot economy, whatever, is I think so important for the next 20 years of where we're at. Because you probably experienced this. I know we experienced this. We got canceled by YouTube, Facebook. I mean, we got cancel culture all around us in our show and what we do at Cross Politic. And, I've even built my own podcast hosting service, Dropwave, for those reasons, And so I think actually coming together as Christians who get the moment we're in to build the parallel economy as part of the network is super powerful.
Yeah. I think it's good to note too, that 45 and under that generation, 3 out of 5 will run a business and be an entrepreneur at some point in their life. That's 60% of the population. That's more than the 9 to 5s. So just remember this upcoming generation is very in tune with being their own boss, running their own thing, creating their own thing. So I think this is much needed. All right, let's not spend too much more time on that. And obviously, there's going to be a link below, guys. If you're interested in this, click on the business makers and how you can join and kind of see what Gabe's doing there. But I want to talk a little bit about.
You'll see Greg's website. We have a partnership actually with Greg. Not to ruin the show here, but we got a partnership with Greg on business makers, and you can go to his link and sign up from there right now. Not try to sell you guys. I mean, I really want Christians to join who are serious about their career, serious about their business, serious about Jesus. But because this is our first year, we're 40% off of all the tiers.
Nice.
because it's our first year. We know you're taking a risk on us and what we're doing, and so we're trying to discount it in a way that we acknowledge this building year. It's a building year, but we already got 60 people roughly as part of the network, and by the end of the year we hope to have 200 to 300. We'd love you to participate in that. So go to Greg's landing page, check it
Yeah,
out.
and just guys, really quickly, how many of you out there who own a business have spent $300, $400, $500 a year at a Chamber of Commerce, a very liberal group, or a BMI, which is $150 a month, or whatever it is, because you want to try to grow your business and you're working with people that aren't even believers or have the same morals or values as you? This is something that, like I said, the umbrella is the principles of, I would say, the principles of the parable of the master and the talent. I mean, you know what the master said to the servant who hid his talent, right? Curse you. You need to
Yeah.
go out and make it work for you. So, yeah, good stuff. And we'll link that up below. But I want to talk a little bit with the little time I have left with you on the Fight Laugh Feast Conference 2025, Nashville, Tennessee, October 16th through 18th. It is always a great time for anyone who hasn't been. And I think 4 or 5 new podcasters came last year just because they heard me talking about it. And they said, okay, I want to go there. And they're like, we're already coming back. It's the best one we've been to. The feel of and the camaraderie and just the it's fighting, it's laughing, and it's feasting. There's a lot of laughing and feasting. There's a lot of fighting there too. But this one for me is the subject is going to be awesome. School wars, because if you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, I am adamant about homeschooling your children. By the grace of God, my 3 are almost 16, almost 14, and 11. They've never stepped foot in a government school, and they never will, hopefully. So I'm a big proponent of homeschooling and understanding that. We've used some curriculum that Doug Wilson has, promoted and helped write. So when we say school wars, what are we talking about? Are we only talking about homeschool, or are we going to be talking about what goes on in a public school, private school, charter, the politics of it? Like, give me the lowdown. Don't give too much away, but kind of tease us a little bit, because we're 90 plus days out. We're getting close.
Yeah. So the dates are October 16th to the 18th, as you already mentioned. October 15th, we do a corporate partner dinner. So make sure, if you guys want to be invited to that, you got to email me, waterboy@crosspolitic.com, waterboy@crosspolitic.com, because that's invite only. But we just want serious businesses there. And the topic is school wars. Now, the subtopic, or the subtitle is how to rebuild Christendom with your kids. And we aren't just talking about like education. We're talking about discipleship. Because education is discipleship, but discipleship's bigger than education. Now, we're playing off schools because that's where everyone goes through school, whether it's homeschool, public school, Christian school, whatever. That's been kind of the big influencer in our kids' lives over the last centuries. And so think of it this way: in 1787, 89, when the Constitution was ratified, America was made up 99% Protestant, not Catholic, 99% Protestant, which means to us is that Christians have not been able to keep their kids, because if Protestants just kept their kids in 1789, and their kids kept their kids kept their kids, Christian, 1,000 generations kind of concept, where your kids have faithful Christians, your kids have faithful Christians, that kind of concept, we never would have lost America. But what happened was we actually lost America in giving our own kids away. And usually it happened through public education, because that is
100%.
the dominating discipleship factory in our nation. And so Christians have lost their kids over the years. So we need to recover actually what it means to disciple our kids. And that absolutely means how we think about education. That absolutely means how we think about fathers and mothers and their family. That absolutely means how churches think about discipling their own flock. And so I can't, this is one of the baseline issues that we need to get right if we want to recover America and its Christian heritage. We have to get discipling our kids right. This is why mega churches and their business models are like Starbucks. They're constantly having to depend on a new market to get their customers from because they can't even keep their own kids. Southern Baptist
Yeah.
did a study, I think it was in 2012 or something. Southern Baptist did a study, and they found out up to 80% of the kids were losing their faith by their freshman year in college. This is
Wow.
only in SBC circles. So
Wow.
it's probably a pretty good percentage, a pretty good range of percentage. 50 to 80% was the range for most churches. It's probably a good sample for most churches. That means if you can't even keep 50% of your kids in your own pews in your own church, you're losing. So that's school wars.
You want to hear something, and you've probably already known this. We might have talked about it. I'm not sure, but when I found this out, it was kind of sickening. Talking about churches and mega churches and kind of that non-denominational and SBC mega church kind of
Yeah.
vibe. A lot of these mega churches, they will geofence other large churches within a certain radius. They will look and find what the reported income is, and they will look at the higher earners, and they will target them on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for their church. So they're losing so many kids. They go, we're at church A, church B across the road has, 200 members that make more than $100,000 a year. They put a little
Wow.
geo fence around that when they go in, because your phone reports all that for advertising. And then they're basically just sniping them from other churches. So it's not, preach the gospel and go to the lost. It's, hey, these guys make money. Let's get them over to our side of town.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of sickening, really. And
Mhm.
it's kind of funny because I'm not in a church like that. I know you're not in a church like that. We've had a new baby born in our church, one baby every 11 days on average for the last 3.5 years. And we're
Incredible.
doubling and tripling in size from 3 to 4 years ago. And there
Yeah.
are some new people coming in. But some of the events too that we were doing that were like outreach events, we just said, no, we're not doing that. Not only are we growing
Mhm.
because we believe in the covenant promise of what children are, but our children don't leave.
Yeah.
They
Amen.
like the family of God, right? And it's like, to me, tell me what you think about this, because I can be direct, and sometimes I get in discussions, even at people at my church who send their kids to public schools. I just don't understand it. It's a very kind of emerging church, non-denominational view of, I'm going to send my kids to Rome for 40 hours a week, but listen, they do a Wednesday night for a couple hours with the youth group. They go on a retreat once a year. I talk to them
Mhm.
about God. We do a devotional 3 times a week for a half hour. So, I'm influencing them for 6 to 7 hours of those hours a week, while meanwhile public schools influencing them 40 plus hours with extracurricular, sometimes 50
Yeah.
hours. That's insane to me. The numbers just don't add up. There's
Yeah.
nothing you can tell me. There's no excuse you can give me. I'm sending them to be a witness. They need to be socialized. It's all dumb. It doesn't hold weight. And it's
No.
this thing where I start to sound like a one-track record, and I don't want to sound like, oh, homeschool is the solution to everything. But like you said, we have to start using terminology like you just used. It's
Mhm.
public school is the number one discipleship tool for our kids in the United States.
Yep. And
When
they're
you
winning.
said that clicked. I'm going to start using that. I'm going to
Mhm.
steal it right from you and just go, who do
Mhm.
you want to disciple your kids, right?
Mhm. That's right. You think about it. I mean, this is kind of a little bit of similar argument you were just making, but your kids spend 16,000, 17,000 hours in public schools, K through
Yeah.
12. During that time, you as a dad would spend maybe 2,000 to 3,000 quality hours with your kids. You
Wow.
can't win with that.
Yeah.
Secondly,
Dad.
um, if you want to send your kids off to be an evangelist in into pagan infrastructure, I'm all for that, but they need to be discipled. If your
Yeah.
kids aren't discipled, then don't send them off. And I'll say, lastly, the biggest culprit of this is Baptists. They'll send their kids off to public school to be evangelists to public schools. That's their main argument: evangelism. Light and
Yeah.
salt. Salt and light
Sure.
and all that stuff. Unbaptized,
Yeah.
and they expect their unbaptized kids to go evangelize and baptize in a pagan missionary zone.
Yeah.
And so um, there's more theology behind that, but I just want to point out, like, you're logically not even thinking clear about your own theology when you do that. If I want my house to be built, I want my house to be designed by an architecture, designed by an engineer, and built by an official contractor.
Yeah.
We have all these standards for all these other things, but then all of a sudden, when it comes to sending our kids to public schools as salt and light, we have zero standards for the discipleship requirements for our kids to go there. And so it's no
Yeah.
wonder they're the ones being discipled.
100%.
60%, 50% to 80% of the kids, Southern Baptists at least, it's a sample size, but it's a big sample size, are losing their faith by their freshman year of college. That means we're losing. That means
Yeah.
your kids are the ones being discipled. Your kids are not doing the discipling in general. And so it's unfortunate that kind of thinking has crept into our church, and its damage has absolutely destroyed our second,
Yeah.
third generation kids. You'll see a family. What'll happen is you'll see a family. Maybe their kids escape public school Christians, maybe, and they get out, and then their next generation likely won't escape without losing their faith. That's generally the trend you're going to see.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I say, if you think you're going to send a junior high school kid whose brain is not even fully developed and still needs shepherding and discipleship themselves to be some type of witness in just a gulag of horrible sin and depravity, which is the public schools, I don't know who you're fooling. This is going to sound harsh, but I'll say it. Every single person, Gabe, every single parent that I've talked to that has sent even if they started homeschooling or private school, Christian school, and then went to public school, there was some type of selfish reason or gain for the parent. When you really get down to it, we were behind on bills, or we wanted a cabin up north, so she went back to work, or it always comes down to some type of thing that they didn't want to sacrifice. And I know people listening are go, Greg, that sounds harsh. That's just the truth. I hear all kinds of excuses, but listen, I was in sales for 15 years. I can get 5 no's and I can get past the objections. What's the real reason? And that real reason is always, we wanted something. The husband and wife wanted something, and we're going to sacrifice our children for it. And it's very, very sad. And you say the Baptist thing, but I agree with you. Look at when we have baptisms in our church and our pastor turns around to us and says, okay, now congregation, you have a part in this. You stand up. Do you solemnly promise to have a covenant with this child, to make sure that they're raised in the admonition of the Lord, to make sure they're corrected, to make sure they're discipled, to make, you know what I mean? And you're going, oh, I have a responsibility here too, as part of this covenant promise. And I don't see that in non-denoms. I don't see that in the SBC. I don't see it with the theology of Baptists. And it's very sad because, like I said, I grew up where I said the sinner's prayer at 7, but couldn't get baptized till I was 13. I was like, dude, what was I in those in between years,
Yeah. Here's the other question that I think no one's asking or stopped asking, because I think the answer got worse and worse, was the other side of this. What would it take for you to take your kids out of public school? Think about this. Would it take them removing the Bible from school in the 60s? Would it take them removing prayer from schools in the 70s?
That's gone. Yep.
Would it take you, you think you're winning when you're doing see at the poll? You think that's winning? Will it take men going into women's bathrooms? Trans men? Well, what will it take for you to get your kids out of public schools? LGBT groups been going on forever. Yeah. I remember,
trans closets, I mean, list goes on and on.
Back when the LGBT, when I remember asking this question at See You at the Poll started happening, prayer, once a year we'd go pray at the poll and think we were winning. And I remember when the LGBT curriculum started getting into 2nd and 3rd grade, I remember asking, hey, my Christian friends, what's going to take for you to pull out? And then the trans thing happened. It's just, and this apparently nothing. Apparently the public schools can do whatever they want with your kids and you won't take them out.
Oh, they think they can go down to the school board and argue with the school board and we'll change it that way. And it's like, we are so far past that. We have allowed so much prayer, Bible, right? I mean, 1988, I was pulled out of 3rd grade because I answered a question. They said, if a man is starving, is it okay to steal bread? And I was the only one in 3rd grade that said, no, there's other ways that he could go find work. He could trade, work for food. And they sent me to the principal's office. And my father came in and said, okay, it's 1988 and you guys are teaching subjective morality. We're out of here. That was his line in 1988. Can you imagine parents nowadays that are like, oh yeah, here in Michigan, we passed the constitutional referendum, 54% of the vote. your kid goes to school, even if they're under the age of 12, and they say, hey, teacher, I'm trans. I need a trans closet. I need to start surgery. Teacher can take them to the doctor, start the surgery, not tell the parent. That's a constitutional amendment in Michigan. So this thing that we're playing around with in public schools, like how far is it going to go? It can't go much farther, Gabe. And it's insane. But let's talk about some of the speakers, because we always have good speakers at Fight Left Feast, and then I'm going to let you go.
Thank you, Greg.
Tell us who's going to be there in Nashville. I saw the list, but I want you to throw them out there because they're good guys.
Yeah, and some of these guys are just so legacy in the education space. You got Pastor Doug Wilson, Pastor George Grant. They've been in this space for 40 years.
Yeah.
And they've been so fantastic in this space. Homeschool, Christian school, classical Christian school would be our emphasis. But homeschool, online Christian schools, all that stuff. So Pastor Doug Wilson will be there. Man, he gave me his speaking titles. They're really good. I can't remember. Pastor George Grant, Pastor Ben Merkel. Pastor Ben Merkel, his title is "It's Worse Than You Think."
Wow. Listen, I'm just going to tell you, I've had Merkel on here a couple times, and I absolutely love talking to him.
He's fantastic.
I mean, he doesn't get the credit that he deserves for just being an intelligent educator that understands what's going on. I mean, if you want secrets of the industry, you're going to want to watch whatever he's talking about.
Yeah, he's the president of New St. Andrews College, so it's worse than you think. And we got we always get kind of a unique speaker every year. Larry Taunton. Do you know Larry Taunton?
I don't know him. That's what I'm looking forward to.
He's speaking. He has been a subversive journalist for decades.
I like that.
His house got swatted 6 months ago for his journalism.
Wow.
And it was very scary. It was, thank God at the end, no one got hurt. Both the SWAT and Larry were fine. But, I mean, their SWAT was outside and he was inside with a gun. And then, I mean, it's crazy. But Larry is, he's raised faithful children. His talk is Subversive Arrows, playing off Psalm 127. We got David Bonson. I haven't quite worked out. I need to talk to David about this, but I want to work out. I hope this is what we can work out with him, but I basically want to work out the economics of losing your kids.
Interesting.
Because if your kids leave the faith, what's the not just the spiritual wreckage that happens, but the financial wreckage. There's an economic study that was done years ago. I want to say 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. That kind of looked at it from this way. It said that if kids growing up in single parent households have an average graduation level of 11th grade.
What? In the United States?
In the United States.
Wow.
11th grade average education level. And which means the economic damage that causes, because if you don't got a high school degree, you're not going to make as much. There's just a connection between education and if you don't got a college degree, you're not going to make it. There's general connections between education levels and money. And so the damage though that comes from losing your kids from the faith is eternally massive. But then there's also just a practical economic side to that too, that I want to look at in the church. Because now your kids aren't going to church anymore. They aren't tithing anymore. They aren't raising their kids in the church. So what's the economic damages for?
It's so great. I mean, Shapiro 15 years ago, Ben Shapiro used to throw around a stat that says if you want to be in the middle class, the best way to do that is to graduate high school, get married, and start having kids after you're married. That's it. You have a school. You have a 75% statistical advantage. And then just think about this, Gabe. The PSYOP from the government has been from the beginning to break down the nuclear family and say, hey, when you turn 18, you're an adult, go move out, get your own apartment. Doesn't matter if you're married or not. And they break it up. There's a reason why the Bible talks about generations of family and how they were related and why they would bring together their businesses and cattle. There's something very godly about extended family. You as a parent, grandparent, having that parachute for your children to care for you, you to help leave them a legacy and and wealth, right? Proverbs says a wise person is someone who leaves not only wealth to their children, but their children's children. So it's all intertwined. And it's all aimed in the secular and pagan world is all aimed at breaking that apart. And I think the Bonson speech, if you can work out something with the economics of that, because I'm sure there's so many statistics to support that, that will be such a good talk.
Yeah. So I'm working that out with him. I haven't quite defined all the terms or we haven't quite sorted through it all. Then we also have, and we're doing something different again this year. We have afternoon
Okay.
TED Talks, what we call Gear Up Talks. So we got 5 or 6 people speaking for like 20 minutes on a particular topic. We got David Goodwin. So we got these Gear Up Talks happening,
Yeah.
and they're like TED Talks, but we got 5 or 6 people speaking. David Goodwin speaking, Dr. Herb on music, discipling
Yeah.
our kids with music. Daniel Spratt, Eric Boss, and we got some others, and we got some Q&A. We also have a Jumpy Castle. We always have a Jumpy Castle for the kids. It's a very family integrated conference, and so your kids can't miss the Jumpy Castle. Of course, we got probably about 60 booths there, so a lot of good Christian businesses come, and it's just a full house of everything, and fellowship and all the good stuff. So there's more on there. There's a business luncheon happening. There's a pastor's luncheon happening. You can go to fightlaughfeast.com to check it all out. Go to fightlaughfeast.com to see the whole schedule and everything that's going on. Of course, if you want to vend and booth at our conference, you can click on sponsor and go that route too. So we hope to see you guys in Nashville, October 16th through 18th. Thank you, Greg, so much for having me on your show, man. Really appreciate you and your work, and love Dead Men Walking, the Dubbers. Let's go Dubbers. Thank you much.
Gabe's shooting for the Dubbers. Gabe, yeah, thank you so much. And very quickly, I would just like to say as well, guys, if you're a podcaster and you want to come to this conference, reach out to me. I've never met a podcast. We do something very unique at Fight Laugh Feast that everyone is copying. Fight Laugh Feast was the first one to go, hey, let's do a media row. Let's get podcasters there covering the talks. They make sure that their speakers are very open to walk down that road, to have interviews. And last year, with the podcasters there, I think we had 22 podcasters there, over 5 million views between the content they put out just from Fight Laugh Feast. Okay. So if you're one of those podcasters or if you saw it and you're a content creator, contact me because I want you to go there. It's money well spent to get a booth. You're not going to have a better, you're not going to have a better use of money for exposure and just a good time. But Gabe, thanks so much for being. We'll make sure we link up everything so you guys can click through. But Gabe, thanks for spending some time with us tonight, guys. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Dead Men Walking Podcast, and keep those ideas out there for us for what we're going to call the listeners. I've really been thinking about that. I want to hook someone up on some of that free merch as well too. But as always, guys, remember the chief end of man is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. God bless.
Be sure to check us out at dmwpodcast.com, where you can purchase the best and snarkiest merch on the internet, support the show, and leave us a review or message. Dead Men Walking can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Dead Men Walking Podcast, and on Twitter X at Real DMW Podcast. The Dead Men Walking Podcast is part of the Fight Laugh Feast Network. For exclusive show content, be sure to download the PubTV app and become a member. If you're a business that needs to reach hundreds of thousands of potential customers in your demographic, podcast advertising might be for you. Send all inquiries to deadmenwalkingpodcast@gmail.com.
None your biscuits.